This meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 and all other applicable laws, temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. And I don't think anyone else besides me is recording this, so we will press on. Here's the agenda. We got a packed house here. We're planning on our representative. Well, only Joan, our representative, is going to join us at 8 o'clock. That would be item agenda number 10. So we're going to plow through this, and hopefully it won't take that long. But anyway, so I now call this meeting to order. We have on the committee, we have myself and John Lawler and John Rice and Michelle Balcomi in attendance. And first on the agenda is approving of the minutes, of which there are a few. I have read through them. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Going once, going twice?
Good to me.
Looks good to you. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
All right, seconded. All those in favor, Dave Jones? Aye. John Lawler?
Aye.
John Rice?
Aye.
All right, we have successfully cleared out the backlog on minutes, right, John?
Yep.
All right, if you could get those posted, that would be great. And I can stop sharing this because you guys already have it all. Yeah, let's see. Here we go. Okay, next up on the list is the Verizon contract update. It was approved, so we're now the select board. We went through it. Was very brief. Our council was on the Zoom call. I was on the call as well. They had 2 out of 3 of the select board in attendance. They weren't, there was no discussion on it, so they approved it. So we're good for another 5 years with Verizon. And I believe the interesting thing on this particular contract is that in 3 years they can petition to be out of the contract. So in 3 years we may get a miss from Verizon. We don't know, but it's for 5 years. Any discussion on the contract? Going once, going twice? No. All right. Next up, I've got 2 new cable committee applications. So I think we only have 1 now, right? Michelle, you had somebody you wanted to introduce?
Sure. Kristen Arute has joined this meeting. Kristen can introduce herself. She's very active in the town of Hingham, so I'll let you take it from there, Kristen, and then talk about the application that you filled out and why.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about myself. I did fill out an application. I've been a Hingham resident for over 30 years, raised my 2 children here. They're both successfully graduated from Hingham High School and have moved on to bigger and better things. But I've been actively involved with Harbor Media for several years now through the work that I do with Hingham Cares. Hingham Cares is a nonprofit prevention coalition. Our mission is to reduce substance use within the town of Hingham, among youth within the town of Hingham. And to that end, we have created a podcast, we've done videos, and Harbor Media has been such a tremendous resource. I feel like I know the team really well over there, have a good understanding of how operations work, and have a real passion for community access television. I think Hingham is far and away, a real shining example of exactly what can be done with cable access. So I appreciate your consideration of my application, and I hope to be joining the committee.
Right. because we we definitely need. We're getting a little thin here, so yeah, that'd be great. Now,
Kristen, I didn't know you in this capacity, but is it correct that you were also a local journalist?
For a short time, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for a short time.
now would be a good time to be in the news biz, but that's a different story.
I did serve on Council on Aging a few years ago. I was on
Okay.
Council on Aging, been actively involved in PTO in the past. I ran senior night 2 years in a row at the high school. So done several different things in town.
Okay. Well, as I understand it, the appointments are done in June, and the moderator right now it's Mike Puzo meets with the select board, and they go through all the talent applications and then assign people. So that's the way it works. So in June,
Yes.
hopefully they'll plow through all that, and I'll get a letter from Sharon saying, "Hey, you got a new guy, woman, sign her up." So that's the way it works. To me, it seems a little informal, but that's the way it works. All right.
So Kristen, you can see the names. Dave Jones is chair, John Rice is vice chair, John Lawler on your screen is the secretary, and Heather Cashman is the Hingham Public Schools representative.
Yeah. And on the committee, only Michelle is non-voting. The rest of them can vote, and that include Heather can vote too. So that's the way it works.
Great. Nice to meet everyone.
All right. Thanks for joining up.
Sure.
Yeah, the public school contract. I have no idea where we are with it. Where are we with it, Heather?
Yep. So we sent the language back and forth to each other, and all parties agreed with the new changes. Okay. The piece that I was confused at, I thought it had to go before the select board, but so that's not the case. Right. So do I just, kind of like walk across town hall,
walk across town hall
signature,
with a copy in your hand and get Tom Mayo to do something with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Okay.
It's not, yeah. But you're proceeding apace. And so are we still, last time we talked, we were thinking of having some kind of club. Any ideas on that's going on?
Yeah, so I don't think the club is going to happen in terms of rerouting any monies or anything like that. Okay. But I did talk to our superintendent, and she said the current class, the media class, does produce a Friday show every week. That we could supply to Harbor Media if you'd be interested. Michelle, have you ever seen any of the Friday shows?
We have. The issue was that the content was not suitable for community media. It had copyright protected material that we can't air. And so what we've done in the past, we offered through the TV production classes, links to resources with fair use images, video, and music. And so if they were to use those things in the Friday show, then the Friday show could air on Harbor Media. But if the Friday show contains protected material, it's not suitable for airing on community media. It goes against FCC guidelines.
Okay. All right. Appreciate the information.
So just add, we have suggested maybe it could be discussed that this should be, if it's not, it should be part of the curriculum, teaching the students what's usable and what's not. That is an essential part of learning TV and video production, respecting copyright, understanding what's fair use. We teach our volunteers, members, interns how to use those resources, both with products that we have, but also it's very simple Google advanced search. You can search fair use.
Okay. Yeah. Any sort of curriculum additions or changes or anything like that is, beyond me. But I could definitely suggest it. But really with this media class, I've been told it's very introductory, and, there's not much, they can't build, media 1, media 2, like some classes, some electives at the high school, whereas this one's a 1 semester introductory class. So the content that they are creating is what we would have access to. But other than that, I have been pretty consistent with, like, our office, the district office has been consistent giving contributed content, at least 2 a month. So, but you know, that's probably where it's going to be. And then, you know, if there might be a Friday show without any, you know, free of copyright or anything like that, but that's how it'll remain.
Offered to teach. So we had spoken before, we've suggested this for a few years, that the students be taught, learn, and have the resources for fair use in their productions. That's something even our staff can come in and teach once a semester. We'd be happy to do that. And then the only other thing I saw in that draft language with the school contract, and again, Harbor Media is not a party. This is between the town of Hingham and Hingham Public Schools, because it does involve cable funding. But the only other thing I saw in that draft was, I thought the draft, or maybe it was an older version, said that the schools had to offer an advanced class, or there was some language around that. So if you're finding that the student body isn't registering for an advanced class and they're all introductory, as you say here, then maybe that should be tweaked in the language as well. But I'm pretty sure in a prior version, the cable committee had said you guys have to offer an advanced class every semester. So that
Okay.
probably should be tweaked if that's not what students are signing up for.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely should be tweaked. I don't recall exactly the language, or I should have it up, but there's been so many different versions over the past year, but I'll find it. And if I do see that, I can make that change and send it to the cable committee.
Okay.
Heather, you know, we've talked a little bit about what our expectations are. This is, Christine, just so you know, this is some of the funding that we get from the cable suppliers, both Verizon and Comcast. We take some of that money and give it to the schools to help with the media components. In return, we want to get programming that would be on Harbor Media. That money is intended for the benefit of our cable access channels. And we've been trying for about 8 years to get programming from the high school and from the other school system, you know, people, the middle school, whoever can produce. And we've run into this Friday show thing for 8 years where it hasn't been appropriate. It feels like it's going around and around. And I get to a point, Heather, where I question the reason why we're even helping fund this situation if we get none of this product out of it. And that's why in the last, this agreement was intended to try and put together a system in which we could maybe deal with that. It's supposed to going around and around again with the Friday show has stuff that's inappropriate. We've been there, done that already. And so it's frustrating. Now, we're not saying that you can't have somebody tape a soccer game and do a profile of a coach, an individual. It doesn't have to come out of the media class. It can come out of whatever the school programming can generate. We just want to see some, you know, that would be programming that students would be able to do, or in tandem with teachers to help either profile the curriculum or the student body or the theater or whatever it might be. But we felt like in order for this money to be utilized well from an educational point of view is that the kids had to create something on their own for the most part. And I think that we have to review this in the next year, whether we're getting the delivery of that or if it's not happening, we need to think about other ways perhaps to take that money and incentivize that action to happen, whether it's giving it back to Harbor Media or setting up, you know, some of that money that would go through the production grant process or something. I'm not quite sure what that would be, but I think that's something we have to look at because our expectation is, and it's been a year, you know, we're getting contributed content, but I think the intent that we had on this was to get programming from the students. That's my view anyway.
Okay, so that isn't clear at all in the contract. That it's and you know, I understand that the, you know, possibilities are endless from a student point of view. I mean, I would love to see what students would generate as content. It's just, it's not a part of the media class curriculum. And there's no process in place right now to have kids submit videos to a medium or something like that. But if that's what you're hoping to get from the contract, you know, things would have to be established that I just don't think are possible. You know, this is the one elective class, and if we're looking for consistency of submissions, you know, we're not going to get it. We'd have to create like a, you know, update your reel of the week or something. Like it would have to be something completely separate from curriculum. And you know, you don't know how consistent that's going to be. So, you know, if the committee wants to discuss how to better allocate, you know, I'm open to having that conversation. And I think we should definitely loop in the superintendent in that conversation, just so, you know, it's not just coming from me, it's coming from obviously the, you know, top administrator in the public schools. But with specific to the contract, it does almost state that it's either coming from the media class or the district. It doesn't specify students really anywhere.
I know, but I mean, we have a long history of this, Heather, so this has always been our intent from day one. I mean, what the contract read was, we just need some delivery of product. We want Harbor Media to get a couple of pieces that they can program.
Well, and you,
and I think that the
Harbor Media has been receiving at least 2, if not more, every month this entire year.
But from the teachers, you're saying?
No, well, so then now, you know, this contract is getting choosy. Well, we don't want your content, we want teacher created content, or we want student created. Then,
But when you say contributed content, could you be more specific? Who's contributing it?
me personally, I am contributing it. I can tell you, there was a teacher appreciation reel. There was a bunch of budget informational ones. There was one about a special ed student. There was one about World Cultures Night, Electric House Project. I did a video of a mural, one about Opry, the comfort dog. I'm doing a lot of video content, but again, if that's not what you want, then it has to be specific in the contract. That's not what you want. Specify what you want, and then we'd have to have a conversation to figure out, is this possible? And I'm just gonna say, I don't think it is, from what you're thinking. And if that's the case, you know, if the committee is not happy with that answer, then by all means, you know, have discussions to reallocate. It's just, it can't happen from students. There's no process set in place. There's no class that requires anything like that. We could obviously open up like a community submission, you know, avenue, but is it going to be consistent? I don't know. Right. And
Yeah.
who's going to be telling the kids to do these things, right? So it's a lot of pieces in play. But again, if this has been going on for 8 years and you're not getting what you're hoping for, then, you know, then make those steps, right? So
is it relatively easy? So I'm a student and I want to get something on our air. Is it relatively easy for them to do it if they have the content and whatnot? I mean, there's nothing that slows down them getting stuff. I mean, obviously it has to be, you know, have copyright and all the rest of it, but if they have legitimate content, is it fairly frictionless to get it onto the channels?
I can speak to that. Just within the past 2 months, we had a student contributed piece this year.
Yeah.
And students in one class interviewed 2 coaches who received special designation, and then students in the other class edited it. So then it came to us, and as soon as it came to us, it went on our edit sheet. Now, we did have to add a few elements, some music, some lower thirds, because it was just straight talking.
Yeah.
So, you know, we did spend.
But if I want,
we would take that, you know, obviously, because then you don't have any music or graphic issues or footage. But then it becomes part of our, you know, then we need to put it on our edit sheet and plan and for people to edit it. That's all.
I just, and I think that you're answering my question is, if I wander over to the high school or whatever and quiz the random student, and they say, oh yeah, I can get stuff on Harbor Media with no, you know, in other words, it's not something that it's not something that slows them down from doing, aside from all the other, you know, issues, but it's fairly frictionless, I guess, is what I'm hearing, to get stuff on.
Yeah, it's like,
I guess my question would be, has there been, do the students even aware that they can go and do this and put it on Harbor Media? Has there ever been a communication to the student body that says, if you create media, you can get it on? I mean, in terms of through this program?
very fortunate, I would say for now more than a year, Hingham High School has included a
Uh-oh.
fantastic. We've had great volunteers. We have a Hingham Middle School student who already sent us a draft of his grant application. He got that from Tracy Blake, lover at Hingham Middle School, because we've been working in their classrooms off and on for 2 years in those video production classes. So we have a lot of support. If I were to try to be a bridge between, because I've been on the CAC now 3 years, in this position, and then there have been different Hingham Public Schools representatives where the CAC has been trying to get this relationship formalized. Heather, you nailed it. That is the expectation, to say we're providing funding for a teaching position from the CAC, not from me, from the CAC. And they're saying, and there should be programming coming from the students as a result of that. Like, this is paying a position, the position is teaching the students should be creating something, even if it's once or twice a semester, that goes on television, because these are restricted cable funds. Any use of that really should be for creating programming. But that's actually not my understanding from the school liaisons, different ones before you, Heather. And then now what you're saying is that's not how the classes are structured to create programming for television, even once or twice a year. So then what we did is we worked with a high school teacher and we submitted a bonus program. Like, hey, you guys can receive bonus points in your class if you follow Harbor Media's instructions. And we gave resource links and create a video. So that didn't happen, but they did have a class this year, like I said, that sent in an interview. I think it was about a 10-minute interview with 2 coaches. But some alternative uses for those funds that still could apply to high school students. There's a lot of interest for covering sports programming. And I had someone just reach out to me a couple of weeks ago from Hingham Sports Partnership. They'd love to somehow get in this game also of having sports covered on Harbor Media. So we're not funded that way right now, but if the school has funding and the program isn't coming from the class, could those students in those classes then be given some training and record sports games that go on Harbor Media? That way the CAC gets what they think they're paying for, which is, hey, we want some student programming, but then the funds still stay with the schools. Maybe that's an answer. And we have trained some people before through Hingham Sports Partnership, some parents, they weren't students. They asked us to train, and they did record a couple of games, and we carried those live. So I think there's still some opportunities. It's just when I read the draft contract, I still see between the 2 groups, because it's not us making the decision.
Yeah.
So I'm neutral. I see there's still a little bit of a gap to bridge.
Yeah.
I
So
agree.
net, could we get Heather and John and Dr. Adams in a room together and get some discussions going? Because otherwise, we seem to be not making, we're at a little standstill. Okay, John, would you mind? I mean, I know
Yeah, no, I'd be glad to do that. I think all of this is very solvable, by the way. I think that, I know many of the media teachers, and I know the challenges with the one show. I don't think it's impossible for, some of the kids to be on board with the creating something that would be on the one show that perhaps would be copyright appropriate and things like that. I think that's all very doable, and it just has to be communicated, I think, to the kids who are interested in making media and would be tickled to death to have it seen by their parents on TV or their grandparents or whatever it was. I mean, I just think it's not a big ask, and I think it's relatively easy to do. I know that there's a lot of bureaucracy and things like that at all the different institutions in the town, so it's difficult sometimes to get people to move on that. But I think it's very doable.
Okay, well, I gotta defer to Heather and John to get that going, because it's not gonna be me, I'll tell you that. Is that okay with that? I'm assigning you guys this task to try to get with Dr. Adams and at least get the dialogue going. Is that okay?
Yep,
Okay.
that sounds good. I'll set it up. So Dave, John, and myself at Dr. Adams.
That would be great.
Okay, great. Yep, I'll
Okay.
set that up.
All right. That's the contract production grant. You want to run the video now, Michelle? What the heck? They have there's 2 videos on the production grant. One that's 30 seconds long and one that's 90 seconds long. But I'm going to play the 90-second one. And according to your email, you're putting this. This is on down at the Loring. Is that? Did I get that right? You're on mute. You're on mute, there, guy.
Sorry, I'm so afraid my dog is going to bark that I keep putting myself on mute. I gave him a chew toy. So the 30-second video is playing at the Loring and the Shipyard theaters before every single movie. So in the previews, we're super excited about that exposure, and I've already gotten some feedback. And we play the 30-second on our social media stories and reels, which takes a shorter format. The 90-second version is playing on our channels. Actually, 30-second is too in smaller places, but the 90-second is primarily playing on our channels, social media, website, newsletter, that kind of thing.
All right,
I think playing it at the movies theaters is a great idea.
We got a great ad buy. I'm so excited. We just can't afford to do it every year for 5 years. So we're front loading.
Unfortunately, at the Loring, you're going to get a lot of proposals from people that are about 75 to 80 years old.
Oh, come on. I'm in that group.
I think we'll take them, right?
No names mentioned, but
No
prior
names.
members of the CAC and a video production teacher in that age group just filmed like a 2-hour long, not a 2-hour long episode, but a 2-hour shoot outside today. And he's going to edit it himself.
He's gonna edit this. I know who you're talking about. Let me play this thing. I want to play this thing. Let's see if I can.
I mean, it's kind of a combination of a promo of
Yeah.
the Harbor Media and then sort of an announcement of the grant program. I mean, I think having something that's just about the grant program right from the top would be, you know, I mean, maybe you have another version of it that's just
We do,
that.
and that's exactly
Right.
the point. So the 30-second version is grant.
Yeah, because otherwise it's confusing because you mix a lot of your messaging in with the production grant programming, and even some of it that I see is not really appropriate because you're not supposed to be helping the people doing the production work. You mean you're helping them distribute it, but you're not helping them produce it. So
Yeah, so it was interesting. So
yeah, so you have to be careful about that.
in our creative brief to create this video, thing that we have to come to terms with, which the grant really helps with, is awareness. And if you don't know who Harbor Media is and you don't know what we do, you don't understand what the grant is for. So conversely, the 30-second version literally says, you know, apply for this grant, become a paid TV producer, blah, blah, blah. But we are Harbor Media. The grant is coming from us. We have an uphill battle on awareness. We've known that for years. We track our awareness levels, which are not very high in the community. So they kind of go hand in hand. Anything that Harbor Media is promoting. If we're kicking off a new TV show, certainly the grant program, you have to understand who we are. So yeah, that messaging, and then we don't have any images from the grant program because we're launching the grant program. So we showed production pictures. We're trying to get the person who views that to see themselves in television production.
Well, I think we're going to get grants from professionals that are already in television production. I think it's a little bit like a filmmakers cooperative would do or something, where you're a professional, you have a story to tell about Hingham, or a story to tell that you feel is valuable to citizens of Hingham, and I think that's more of the audience that we're trying to attract or intended to attract, not necessarily. I mean, in other words, the communications I see there, it was a little fuzzy to me about, oh, am I creating a program that's going to be part of the series, or am I going to do something original? I think it just needs to be a little clearer that way. But the 30 might have that for all I know. So.
Yeah, and I don't know that it does, John, to your point. I mean, I think our audience, this is TV for Hingham by Hingham. So it probably the person who's the producer, because it says outlined in the grant materials, there needs to be some connection to Hingham. The programming needs to be of interest to Hingham. If folks go out and hire professional crews, absolutely, we encourage that. That's why they submit a budget. But I don't this is not going to air, and these promos and our advertising is very local and regional. It's not going throughout Massachusetts to attract professional producers. That's not the intended audience.
No, I'm not saying that. I mean, I don't think it's just content experts that are making the proposals. They would hopefully be in tandem with a professional producer, would help them make a budget and make a scenario that would work, but that they would be content driven. Someone has a great idea for something, whether it's, one of the nonprofits here or whoever it might be. And then they would work with a professional team that would put something that would be of high quality, because I think that's the kind of programming we wanted to try and get established.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you a lot of thought and intention and a real creative brief, just like the professionals went into making that video. And we had Margie, Liz, and Mark on that. So we had our marketing and video professionals doing that, and we had to figure out our messaging. And you're right. Part of it is Harbor media awareness. Who are these people and why are they offering a grant? And if I get funded, where is this going to show? It's going to show on Harbor Media's channels.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think you have a lot of the information there. I just think that it could be a little clearer how it works and who it is. Just, I think it mixes in your programming with that a little too much.
Okay. Well, and I think
that's just my own point of view.
Yeah, no, and I value it. And I think once we get through this first cycle, we'll have even more material, because we'll have a whole, slate of grant recipients and their work. And we will be refreshing our video promos. That's something that we can do and control and continue to put out with each cycle. So I think you make some good points. I'd actually like you to weigh in on the creative brief when we update it.
Perfect.
You got to start somewhere. You know what I mean? You got to start somewhere. And we actually you did get what we were putting out there, because your reaction, John, does match our creative brief, but it was our chosen strategy. That's all I can say.
Okay.
I think that we should. I was just thinking off the top of my head. So there's a sort of a time frame for this grant process. We probably should schedule a meeting where we do sort of an after action kind of thing. What went well, what didn't go so well. How can we improve it? And over time we'll obviously get better. Hopefully get better and better at it. So yeah, we should schedule that. But
how have you? I'm just out of curiosity. How you've announced it. How are the submissions going? Or are you happy with what's coming in, or just so far?
Sure. Yeah. So so we launched it last Monday. So we had the application open for a week. We soft launched it before that in our own communications on social media, and 2 different newsletters soft launched it. We've had a good response. We have a PSA on WATD. The anchor printed our press release and some photos and gave us space on the homepage, which was great. We've been tracking the metrics of where people are coming from, which barcodes they're using. So we've had, I don't have Kaylee's metric sheet in front of me, I want to say close to 200 clicks on the page and through the QR codes and the videos. So that's really great. I have a full completed application that I received over the weekend from someone who produces in other areas of Massachusetts, both private production and with community media. And she did her research and made some phone calls in Hingham of a lot of people that she wants to interview for her show idea. So that's completed. I've had a student generate or express interest, and he emailed his application. It's not quite complete. He's going to get some help on his budget. And we had several people attend our informational session last night on the 8th. We have another informational session coming up on the 22nd. We have an open house this Saturday, the 13th, open house studio tour, ask questions about the grant. So
Okay, all right. Making progress.
applications will come probably, you know, in a couple of weeks into June. The applications for this cycle ends June 30th.
Yeah, and then, you know, like you said, we're just starting, but eventually we'll have content that we can put in our promo for the next, you know, cycle. So it'll be great, you know. What is it? What's the award? The Mass Action Award? You know, maybe we won one of those. Who knows?
Mass access, yeah.
That's the one, right? All right, excellent. We officially kicked off the grant process. Excellent. The video looked good on my end, by the way. I like this. Sorry, it was pixelated for you guys, but I sent you the link so you can see it. It's on.
Hey, Ryan, and Ryan, getting video onto this Zoom link where it doesn't pixelate like that, is that something you can help Dave with when if he has to be the host and do that again?
So there's somewhere in the sharing where you can share audio too, but as far as video, I mean, we've tried it at the studio with 250 megabyte upload speed, and it's still kind of laggy. That's
Really?
just the Zoom bandwidth on their end just doesn't do 30 frames a second. So
Even if you go to professional thing, I think there's been some workarounds that people have learned how to do, but
yeah, you might need like the top echelon of the Zoom membership to like video stream out as well as
to do that.
chat. So yeah.
So
Okay.
so it did not to get too weenie about this, but so my video is going to the Zoom service, which in turn is serving. You know, that's no wonder.
Yeah, and they, you know, it all goes and compresses down and sends back to us. So
By the time it gets to you guys, it's very recognizable. So okay.
So from now on, guys, don't do videos, do slideshows.
I have a presentation for the annual report when we get to that.
here, everyone press
That's
play.
next.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah. That's
That's next. We did that. Okay. Yeah. You want to do the budget stuff? Or you want to do the report stuff? What do you? It's up to you,
your
Michelle.
call.
Why don't we wade through the budget stuff? And do you need to share anything? Everybody can share.
Yes. So in the annual report, well, let's see, which you tell me what you'd like to do, Dave.
Let's do the budget first, please.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
There you go.
Yep.
You got it. You're up.
This is the Hingham Harbor Media operating budget planned for this new fiscal year, July 1st. And I've also reached out to town administration because I'm to meet with them after presenting to the CAC tonight, just in the order of things. At the top of the budget, we list our income. And so again, this year, we're planning for about the same income. I've been tracking our budget to actual. We have 2 more months left in this fiscal year, and we're on track to receive $528,000 from the town of Hingham from cable funding. Very conservatively, I estimate other income, whether it come from a studio rental or underwriting, that kind of thing. Actually, sadly, Amazon Smile just went away, so that won't be continued into next year's budget. But all in all, conservatively, we're planning on $530,000 for our operating budget. We will very likely exceed that in here, so we may have some more, but that would be $528,000 in cable funding and approximately $2,000 more for a $530,000 operating budget. We categorize
Can I ask one thing, please?
Oh, yes.
the money that we give you to operate the grant award, is that part of income, or what is how do you account for that?
So that in the contract, the grant is funded through what's called excess reserves. And there's a calculation for that. It basically says it does not count, it only counts reserves from Hingham cable funds, minus what we're allowed to keep, which is 1/2 of a year's funding. So that's approximately $265,000 that we get to keep in our own reserve. Everything else goes to the grant fund.
But didn't I mean, I guess I'm confused. No, I don't mean that. I mean, didn't we say that you could use up to $20,000 to operate the grant process?
Yep, and when I do the annual reports, I have a breakdown, John, of how we already separated the money because we thought the grant was going to start last fall.
Yeah.
So this is just, this 528,000 is just what we expect from 4 quarterly payments from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
Mhm.
That's what we
Okay.
built our operating income is 4 quarterly payments for the new fiscal year.
Okay.
The grant money has already been set aside and separated into 3 different accounts. One's a long-term CD, one's a shorter-term CD, and then one is an immediate account that we'll use for this first cycle.
Okay.
And it does include the $20,000 that were allowed for the ongoing expense, maintenance, that kind of thing.
And where does that money, that $20,000, where do you intend that to go to? In other words, what will you be paying out of that money? Will you be paying staff? Will you be paying for consultants? Where do you see that $20,000 being used?
I can pull that up for you. It's not really part of presenting next year, but I can show you right here because I happen to have this is our current fiscal year budget, which is where the current cable, the grant fund has been happening is in this year's fiscal year budget. I'm presenting to you the new ones. That's what I was doing. But if you go here, you can see what we've spent so far this year.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yep.
It's this fiscal year. You got to get your fiscal year straight. I have to remind myself all the time. But we paid our attorneys for legal review. We paid our accountants for auditing and accounting review to make sure we are setting up the accounts correctly. One more legal fee for they had to review the amendment that the town proposed. We have advertising that we have used, licensing, editing for the video, Patriot Theater. So far we've spent $10,000. This advertising will last us at least the first year.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
And some of these are like one-shot deals because you were starting it up, so you wouldn't.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah, startup costs. Yep.
And to be fair, we were shooting in the dark. We thought we were going to hire consultants to do the grant program. I did all that myself, to write the program, to research, to ask others how they do it. We decided not to pay a consultant to do that, but we did have to have legal auditing. We have to pay for advertising, marketing, editing, creative, that kind of stuff. No, we can't spend that amount every year. We have to have the $20,000 last for the total of 5 years.
Yep.
So this is the income we're building toward is 528 from the town and potentially a total of 530. So what you'll see, the reason why I do 2 columns here is because these are the total expenses, like these are the actual expenses, but because a lot of Hingham's expenses are shared with Norwell, then you have what's actually budgeted. So what's actually budgeted needs to map to the amount of income we're planning. And at the end, you'll see the cost savings because of the shared expenses with Norwell.
Yep.
Okay. So for expenses, we categorize them with business expenses, contract expenses. This is a great example. So every year for our annual accounting, this is not bookkeeping, but this is our annual accounting overview audit, paying our taxes. We pay $11,000. Hingham pays $6,000 of that. So they get a cost savings because Norwell's budget size and Hingham's budget size, the breakdown is 55-45. And so Hingham only pays $6,050 for that instead of the full 11.
Mhm.
There are a couple of areas where we have shared fees, and I keep notes of those and what the percentages are. Same with bookkeeper services. This is our monthly bookkeeping. I do the expenses in-house. I pay the bills. I verify the expenses, and we have a bookkeeper that double checks my math and enters everything in QuickBooks and runs our P&Ls. And then we keep a monthly budget to actual to see how we're doing. These fees are direct. It's payroll, HR, and 401k fees, and those follow the employees. So that follows the Hingham team, for example. So that's why you'll see it's budgeted for 4,000. Hingham pays 4,000. Same for legal fees. I always anticipate some legal fees. This would be for Hingham operating public education and government. What you saw on the grant budget, that was specific to the grant legal fees. So they're not mixed. So for example, out of contract services, 21,500 is budgeted, but Hingham is only paying 13,850 because of realizing shared expenses. Here's another example in facilities and equipment. I'll just move that a little higher up. Our new lease agreement has a total rental amount, not including common area maintenance and real estate taxes. So the rental amount is $54,000. Hingham pays $43,000 of that. The CAM expenses went up this year by a few $1,000s for our new fiscal year. Instead of 17,000, Hingham will pay 13,500. These are mostly shared expenses for facilities. So you can see, you know, we account for everything: heating, electricity, telephone, internet cable, alarm monitoring, and janitorial and maintenance. So total facilities are budgeted at 89, but against the Hingham income, it should only be 70,480 or slightly less.
Michelle, how much did the landlord raise your rent this year?
It was just over 40% from our last contract from 6 years ago.
Wow.
40%.
Mhm.
Wow.
I wasn't expecting it because the trend has been for people to work from home. So I thought maybe they had some empty space, and but it's not the case.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, at what point does it become untenable? I mean, in terms of just if they keep jacking it up like that, and how did they justify that kind of increase?
They
I
were
mean, that seems like pretty dramatic.
Yeah, they were pretty clear about it, that they actually didn't have vacancies and property value has increased, and as has demand. So it really wasn't that complicated. They weren't, I looked at other options. I think that because we have some time on our hands, we're in a 5-year lease. This was last spring, so we have 4 years left. I think we should think about that before we sign another lease. We should look into some other options.
Yep.
I mean, you just have to, you know.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of invested in fixtures there, which is going to go down the tubes otherwise.
Yeah, or be moved, pay to be moved. But
Yeah, right.
yeah, it's an interesting situation. And you know, it also ties to we don't have the reserve that we used to have. We have half a year's funding. So I know the board would not vote to use any of that for moving. So I don't know. But you definitely have to look into it. You have to.
Yeah.
So
I mean, is the possibility to I mean, in other words, you have a lease, but there's no way to cut down on the space. Say you went and didn't have the studio, for instance, or move that to someplace cheaper or whatever it would be. Is that a possibility? And would that bring the rent down, or do they see the two spaces as interconnected?
well, we pay one rent, one space. So
Yep.
then you're talking about maybe carving some of that out. We use all of our space, as you'll see in the annual reports. We have so many people coming in. We're using every inch of space.
Okay. All
Yeah.
Right.
So that's that. The rest of the categories are insurance, that's professional liabilities, workers' comp, etc. And there's a cost savings there because that's obviously shared with Norwell. For operations, most of this is direct. There are some shared expenses. So for example, on computer software and media, we got a much better deal with Adobe a year ago. I renewed our contract and we split it with Norwell 50-50 with site licenses, and paying once a year gave us a cost savings. So that really came down instead of month to month. Office supplies, equipment, these are all mostly direct. Some of them are shared. So for example, our cybersecurity, that's our shared 50-50. So it's mostly direct. That's why you don't see a huge cost savings there, because Norwell has their own budget with their own direct expenses in that category.
May I ask, in terms of the payroll, some of the shared costs with Norwell, are they just accounted in a different way in terms of like people's salary? Like Ryan's, is he 50-50? So part of this payroll expense for Ryan, it's half of his salary and the other half just goes out of the Norwell budget totally? That's how you account for it?
That's exactly right, John. So in our HR category, it is direct cost, and the money follows the employee. And Ryan's case, he's our director of operations, and so that is shared 50-50.
And that includes benefits.
Yeah. So yeah, payroll. The reason why I have a creative services reimbursement, because if someone from the Hingham team, Christina, for example, films something for a creative services project and we take $1,000 check-in on creative services, we have to pay Hingham's operating account for Christina's time for the 3 hours she used to film. And so it worked really well on this budget. It's how our auditor likes us to do it. It's a direct expense. And so you'll see some negative money here, meaning that it offsets this payroll expense. We get some cost savings if people from our team do creative services work, instead of just collecting, oh, you did a couple of projects for a couple of grand each, what are you going to do with that money? That's not the way it works. The auditor needs the expenses to come directly off of that money. That's how it benefits Hingham's operating account, operating budget. Our employer tax liability is listed here. I increased the freelance budget again for the second year in a row. 401k contributions, health insurance, you'll see a negative $7,000 because that's the employees paying 20% of the $35,000. So that's subtracted, making that a cost-effective $28,000 on the budget. Travel, parking, and non-conference, because our employees are able to submit for mileage reimbursement. So all in all for this HR category, so that's medical insurance, dental insurance, that's the employer taxes to the state and federal, all of that is at 416. And then we have amounts for staff development and appreciation. So our total budget here, which is the actual amount we're expecting our Hingham operating budget to pay, is $530, which is based on $528 from cable, and what we're hoping is at least $2,000 in other income. But the cost savings to Hingham, because of shared expenses with the town of Norwell, is $32,070.
Any other questions?
Nope, looks good.
What? Actually, we're right on schedule here because our representative just joined.
Okay, perfect. So we also had on the calendar to go through the annual report materials. I sent the cable committee a presentation. I can go through that in 5 minutes, but the actual documents, which I think are A through O, those are all in that link for you. And our Barbara, it has printed and bound those, and those will be in the town hall select board library, hopefully by the end of this week. We were just waiting on some new binders to come. We have to have 4-inch binders.
I want to maximize Joan's time. So why don't they have the materials and then let them review, or do you want to just kind of, how many slides you got?
It's just a few.
All right, why don't you do the slide? Do the slides.
And Joan is our rep too, so I'd love for Joan to hear what's going on at Harbor Media. If that's okay, I will take 5 minutes.
Okay, roll them.
Okay, and there's slides, so there's no problem with the video.
No video.
No video. Okay, hi. This is your team. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. This is an annual report presentation, but the real meat and potatoes are found in this link. And that is according to our contract. We have a number of items that we deliver to the town. We're under a new contract now. So I applied that since the contract was signed in mid 2022. So we have included those materials in this link. I have emailed the cable committee separately, as I did town administrator Tom Mayo, assistants Michelle and Art and Liz Klein. So they all have a link to these annual report materials, and we are printing and binding them. They'll be in the select board's office very soon. So we have just a general discussion flow here of the materials, which we don't have to go through, programming highlights, member, volunteer, intern involvement, the new grant program, which we actually did talk about before this, community feedback, social media, and just exactly who your crew is. So just some highlights here for programming, meaning what do Hingham viewers get from us. So we do have live public education and government coverage on HD Comcast 1072 and Verizon 2131. Other than government meetings that are live, we have other public and education programming that's live as requested, which is great to have that technology. We implemented that 2 years ago. We also have closed captioning on recorded programming. We currently do not carry live closed captioning for live. But we do have it on all of our recorded programming. If you ever want to know how that happens, we signed with a vendor last year to offer closed captioning conversion of all of our videos and got that to work with our cablecast system. We were either the first or the second in the Commonwealth to offer closed captioning last year. And now we have a much simpler, less expensive, because it's included in our Adobe Premiere Pro process. And Ryan can tell you all the details if you ever want to know, but we are so happy with closed captioning and that we can extend that accessibility to viewers in Hingham. We've had a lot of conversations with Diane DiNapoli about accessibility, and we're thrilled to have it. We also have for viewers programming blocks that feature popular viewer categories. We have a whole history block that's 2, sometimes 3 hours because we have so much content there. Nature programming, educational programming, and then obviously the latest in government programming offered first thing in the morning, 6 a.m. block and 9 p.m. block. Every night you're going to see the latest in government programming. Coming up next, we just bought and installed a server that offers online live streaming of what is live on television, will be live on any internet connected device. Just to give you kind of a snapshot of our 2022 monthly production totals in different categories for public, education, government, and then we wanted to call out our member produced shows. And I'll give you a little bit to compare to from last year in the next slide. But we are very proud to say that members of the community produced and or contributed a total of 48 hours, 99 shows this past year, 2022. So growth of our member produced programming has been a central theme this past year. So in 2021, we had 76 shows and 23 hours created by volunteer members. And in this year, that increased to 99 shows and 48 hours. So we hope to continue this trend. And you'll see in the next couple of slides, we have a lot of people coming in to make television.
Can I ask one quick question about that?
Absolutely.
Of that programming, how much was sort of member produced completely, or how much of it was done with staff producing, editing, doing some of the production? In other words, how much was collaboration and how much of it was just sort of given to you as a program?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, John. I don't have it in front of me, but I can go back to our reports and look, because we do receive a fair amount of contributed programming. For example, the famous Sue Thomas, who has a daily exercise spot. She originated with the Senior Center in Hingham, and she makes her own videos. She gives us 3 to 4 videos every single month. We have 2 faith-based groups in Hingham that give us usually a weekly faith service video. Those are 100% created by those individuals and organizations, and we have nothing to do with them. Maybe some slight editing with a lower third or thank you for contributed content, but otherwise we upload and schedule it. The majority is a blended. Someone is sending us a show idea, a script, they go on camera, they go in front of the camera, they bring someone, we have someone doing a food show now who brings her own camera person, and that person also does her editing. We're just there to teach and guide. So the rest I would say is blended production with our crew. Then you have Bob and Sky, who shot today that I mentioned. They do everything. They produce, they script, get their own guests, they go get their own locations and permission to film on those locations. They're in front of the camera. They do all the speaking, the questioning. We provide 2 camera people, and then they edit everything.
2 guys in the woods. I love it.
And you have celebrity members go on camera like Dave Jones, right? That's,
Making great jelly. I even made the Grant thing.
I know. And yeah. So here are some numbers you all might be interested in, might answer some of your questions. So in terms of membership, and I've talked with a lot of executive directors through the Commonwealth. We hosted the open house that Representative Moschino keynoted for us in the fall. And what we learned is we were not alone. Nobody considers themselves having members anymore, and almost no one had paid memberships. They're just happy to see people want to work with them. They call them volunteers. So it's kind of tricky. How do you measure your membership? So I've broken down some numbers for you all. We have 541 Harbor Media verified email newsletter recipients. That's important because people have to opt in, and they always can hit unsubscribe at the bottom. So we consider these people actively interested in our monthly newsletter. There has been a 22% increase in our verified email recipients. So our list is growing. We had this past year in 2022, 184 active volunteers, members, and interns who produced or contributed programming. So if you do the math, that's 34% of the people on our list are actively engaged in creating public programming. That's how we measure our membership, who's active, who's not. It's not like saying, well, you have 3 people come in a week. We're actually having 10 to 12 people come in every week. But then if you take into account who's sending us their videos, Hingham Unity Council is another group that sends us regular videos. That's, you know, quite active.
Michelle, in the past, Harbor Media and HCAM, its predecessor, used to get lots of programming off of the feed, you know, that would be everything from PSAs to what you know, programming, whatever, from the mass access feed and whatever it was called. Are you still? I haven't seen that much of it on your air. You seem to be more homegrown right now, but are you still utilizing that? Is that still a resource for you? How do you view that?
Very little. So we have one now, Mass Access, produced and made available to everyone. It's wonderful. It's the importance of community media, all the different ways to engage. And we certainly complement that with something we created called Community Connections, where people who create programming with us go on camera to talk about their experience. South Shore Ballet Theater did it. Hingham Cares did it. We have a number of people who made those for us that are more, as you say, homegrown, but we do use that from mass access. It shows the variety and depth of ways that you can work with community media. I also encourage the staff to download the state government videos, because they're very important. And I don't know where else you can have direct access to what's going on at the state legislature. So we do also upload those and have an evening period after our own government. That's about all we get from Mass Access right now.
And there's no other feeds, because it was always just Mass Access that would do that, right? Like, in other words, they were providing, like, here's 25. I mean, because it seemed to me that the programming before used to come from, you know, like I said, PSAs from other organizations. It would be the government. It would be a an anti-smoking thing. You know, any number of things.
It's sometimes, and to be honest, there's some really good PSAs on suicide prevention, on crisis lines. When we see those, we do use them.
Oh, good. All right.
We also created our own PSA with Hingham Police Department on how to turn in and recycle your prescription drugs, which they offer right in the police department 24/7. So we've done that to be more local. Just some other information that you might want to know about our members and volunteers and who's creating programming. We had 953 hours that staff spent teaching and assisting. So that meant that of all the folks coming in, that totaled 953 hours in 2022. So we have people coming in about 18 hours per week. And we had a solid 8 interns from high school and college this past year. So we're really grateful for that, but it really has been one of our busiest years yet with people coming into the studio. We have 5 edit stations for our members and volunteers, 2 in the hallway if you come by, and 3 in a production room between our staff's editing facility and the studio itself.
And
Just regarding the grant, we've already covered it, but according to our May 2022 agreement with the town of Hingham, it categorizes reserve cable funds for a new production grant program. Grants awarded reimburse production expenses, and it incentivizes the community to act as producers and provides funds for professional crews. It enhances both the quality and the quantity of public programming, and overall Hingham viewers will win from this. So we're very happy to finally launch this last week.
Yeah, yeah.
Just some community feedback and support. We have a little link here you can look at anytime someone sends us kind of a kudos in email or on social media. We save it, we remind ourselves that, we are doing good work. And so we've listed one of the quotes here, but this link will send you to our community feedback folder. We just wanted to call out some groups that are consistently on a monthly or a weekly basis, including us in their newsletters. So they create programming with us. They provide that link in their newsletters, or they're encouraging, like Hingham High School PTO every week shows Come Crew with Harbor Media, talks about our learning programs and creating your own programming. And we've also received a lot of social media shout outs. So we just wanted to include that, but you can look in the folder here. And then just in social media metrics, just a growth. Twitter's not a huge platform for us, but we did receive some growth there. Instagram as well. And then Facebook is really growing for us. If you look at the demographic of who's engaging with us, that maps to the demographic of Facebook. Here are social media handles again. I just would like to say too, a big milestone for us in 2022. I wish maybe we could all give Kaylee a round of applause. She did grow our Instagram account to be larger than New TV, and the town of New is a lot larger than the town of Hingham. So she was really proud of that. But those are our handles for you all to support us. This is your team. You all know us, and that's it. But the meat and potatoes are in that link, items A through O.
Yeah, the A through O that Michelle's referring to is the actual headings in the contract, as we do every year. I think it wasn't always A through O, but anyway. So yeah, definitely read through that. Thanks, Michelle. Thanks.
Yeah, and I just quickly, so you know what it's going to look like. Am I still sharing my screen? No, but I will.
No.
I'll just show you this one screen, and then I'll be done with this presentation. So next, if you click this link, I'll also email to the CAC. This is what populates for you. So the cover letter is first. I've named them in order so you don't have to search in order, but the cover letter reflects everything that we are required to share in terms of
Section
reporting.
12. That's what I was thinking about. Section 12. All right.
That's it. But that is covered here.
Okay.
Each item, A, B, C. There's several C's because those are budgets.
Right.
D. E is up here because that's a folder full of cablecast reports for our programming that Ryan takes care of. F all the way through O.
Yeah. Excellent.
Dave, do we need to vote on this going up the chain to the select board for their kind of approval, or obviously we need to read it first. We just got it, so.
Now
how do we go about doing
I
that?
want you guys to go through the A through O thing, because we always agonize about that every year. Go through the A through O. If you got any questions, discuss, in the next meeting we will vote on it, and I'll let the town know that this is okay with us. Proceed. Okay.
Yep, fun.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. Excellent. A lot of work in that. Come on.
Yeah, very good. The best one we've seen.
Work makes the dream work, right?
No, it's the best one we've seen. I mean, it's
Yeah.
been a while.
Believe, as you've heard us talk about our torturous experience, in prior, we
Yeah.
are definitely on an upward trajectory with that. So we appreciate that.
That's good.
Yeah,
Good job.
thank you guys, and thanks for communicating that in the last meeting. It gave me some direction for this meeting.
Next up, we have our representative from the 3rd Plymouth district. And I think what I need is the intricacies of legislating. It can be somewhat complex. I mean, I've been wading through it at the federal level and starting to get more into the local level. But as I understand it, our representative has a bill, number 74, that is currently wending its way through the legislation. And I just want to read the top blurb for you so you can get a context of what we're talking about here. This is the actual document that's filed that you can find in our in the government. Representative Machino of Hull and Moratoria of Plymouth, a petition accompanied by Bill House number 74 by Joan and Matthew, others for legislation to establish a comprehensive statewide policy concerning streaming internet services and the recovery of municipal costs for the management and maintenance of digital infrastructure, advanced information technology, the internet, and cybersecurity. That's the right. And right now, the status, Joan, is it's in that committee now. The intelligence community side, right? It's in that committee, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So with the start of the new legislative session in January, all bills from last session that are not otherwise acted on are end and must be refiled.
Put them back in.
Have to put them back in. So we have refiled the streaming services bill, which we renamed an act to modernize funding for community media programming. And really that's the point, is to make sure we have a sustainable revenue stream to support all of the great work that we just heard Michelle talk to us about. And your growth is tremendous. And it's worthy programming, and it deserves to be supported through sustainable revenues. So the new House bill is number 74. The Senate version was filed by Senator Lewis. That's Senate 34. 34. And this time, when I filed the bill, I've co-filed with Representative Matt Muraturi from Plymouth. He was a tremendous, very articulate supporter of it, and of course, PAC TV is a very successful PEG channels itself. So he was instrumental. So we asked if he'd like to partner with us. So it's always great to work with him. We have the new name on it to try to just make it a little bit more, value based, so people actually read the title and know what it's about. But the bill itself is exactly the same, commas and everything. It was sent again to the same committee, Advanced IT, Internet, and Cybersecurity. We do have a new chair, both a Senate and a House chair, new chairs to the committee, but the committee staff remains the same. So the committee staff is very knowledgeable and very up on this bill. And I have, as the House sponsor, I've sat with the House chair privately and just to let her know what it was and just to give her all the background that you all know so well. And we're meeting with her and the committee staff formally on Thursday. So this is actually very timely. The House was very interested in doing this last session, but it was a first file bill. It was a new committee, and as we were kind of coming down to it, we really got kind of caught up at the press of business at the end of session, and there were a few big things that happened. So which is fine. This is a first file bill. These things have to be well vetted, and I think we've had all of those conversations and really answered all of those questions. And you know, you've heard me present on this before. So when we refiled the bill, we asked Mass Access members, of which you guys are part of that, to really reach out to all of their delegations and to seek out co-sponsors to show that this is really something that people are eager for. And in fact, we have way more sponsors this time than we did last time. I think there's over 70 this time. And it's very much bipartisan, it's very much bicameral. There's a couple of House leaders in there, which is really exciting. And I tell you, everywhere I go, people are talking about this bill. All of your fellow and sister members have really been getting in with their delegations and really talking this up, which has been great. So what we're going to ask on Thursday, right? Today's Tuesday. What we're going to ask on Thursday is, I know, seriously, it's exciting though, right? There's just a tremendous amount is going on in the State House, in the district. Everyone's doing town meetings. So there's a lot of really good things going on right now. So what we're going to ask is if we can get an early hearing, give ourselves a little bit more of a runway. This is, you know, it's a refile, so a lot of people have heard about this. The House leadership was interested in it last time. So we're hoping to give ourselves enough room to really get in there and get it across the finish line. So right now it's all positive, and we're just going to keep working it. And I tell you, all the Mass Access members have been fantastic. And have really gotten in there in the way that we really need them to. Dave was referring to, you know, following the bills and things like that. So when you go on to malegislature.gov,
Yep.
And you're looking at the screen, there should be like a diamond, or excuse me, a star shape up in I think it's in the upper right-hand corner,
Yep.
but somewhere on there, it's going to offer to let you make an account. And when you create that account, you can designate bills that you want to follow, and then you can log in. You'll get notices when the hearings are. I mean, I'm going to let you know when the hearings are. We'll organize panels and we'll organize testimony and things like that. But any person, just the regular public, can create an account for themselves and follow the legislation that's of interest to them and get the notices and things like that. When their hearings come up, if there's a change in whatever's going on, and you can look to see who the co-sponsors are. You can look to see all sorts of different things. So if anyone is interested in doing that, it's very easy to do that. And of course, you can always welcome to be in touch with my office as well. So we're off to a good start so far, and you know, we'll just keep working it.
John, can you?
Is there any public hearings? In other words, well, you know, I'm involved with the Alzheimer's Association. We always show up at the hearings. And
yes,
is there anything like that akin to this?
Yep. That every bill gets a hearing. This bill will get a hearing, and you can testify. You can submit written testimony.
Right.
You can participate virtually and testify virtually, and you can come into the building in person and sign up to testify in person as well, or you can just log in to watch. Whatever makes you comfortable, but we'll let you know when the hearing is. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Is your impression that if you get sort of a critical mass of people, that helps, doesn't it? I mean,
I think so. I actually think, you know, even if you don't want to testify, just logging in onto the hearing, I think, you know, it's, to me, it's just anything that shows an engagement by the public, and in particular by the association, I think is all positive. And even if you wanted to come in and just sit in the hearing room, a lot of people do those.
I do that too. But now I have to be on the devil's advocate. Who would oppose something like this? What would your opposition sound like?
I can tell you exactly who it is.
Okay.
It's like SAG, and it's Comcast. It's anybody who's streaming services.
Anyone has to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, so it's anybody who's going to be charged the fee. I feel like it was. I can give you the. We got all of the testimony in opposition, and it was really just 3, and it's people like Amazon or excuse me, that's not the one I'm trying to think of, HBO and Netflix,
Yeah.
it's people like that that are,
It's the streaming services. Where will the revenue come from, Joan? Is it coming directly from the streaming services or from the carriers like Comcast? Will it come out of Hulu? Will it come out? In other words,
no.
who would cut the
So,
check, you know?
so we already assess a fee on the cable franchises.
Right.
And so all we're really doing is updating what consists of the definition of the cable franchises to include streaming services. It's not a double hit on the Comcast or the Verizons of the world. This is for all, it's really meant to follow the technology. So consumers, as you're well aware, are, trying new technologies, and they want to see their programming through different media. And so we're just keeping pace is really all we're doing. And so it would be just the streaming services. It's the same 5% fee. It comes in through the state and it gets distributed out to municipalities and for both the municipality and the community media center. It would be, I think it's 20% for the state, 40% for the municipality, and then 40% for the community media center to make sure that it's actually reaching you, because you all have different makeups, right? Some of you, like Hull is a department, right? So that 80% is just coming into the town, but for its services as well as for the department services. But here you were just talking about how you're a separate entity that is contractually engaged with the town of Hingham, with the town of Norwell. So it's make sure that it comes and it does reach you. So it's just an assessment of a fee and it comes straight to you. So,
But Joan, can you define that? In other words, if I pay $10 a month for Hulu and I pay $10 a month for HBO Max and I pay $10 a month for Prime Video, is my bill, once this is done, is this going to be a pass-through, or is this something that those streaming services will have to eat as part of their profit? In other words, where does the money,
right.
like I know the cable people, they're not so opposed to cable access because it's a pass-through.
So how they reflect that on your bill, I can't speak to. That would be their choice of their corporation. This is about assessing their revenues in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And we do create a safe harbor provision. I think if memory serves, is up to $250,000. So if it's a small or a new company or something like that, give them a safe harbor provision on that initial revenue, and then anything over that, it's the 5%. So if it's a business like any other that spreads its cost of doing business and in various and different ways. So whether they put it on there as a 5% surcharge, or whether they just absorb that and your bill goes up slightly, or whether they just eat that as part of the revenues, it's no way to know how they will do it, but it's only on their revenues from customers within Massachusetts. And then the nexus of the relationship is really based on the same theory as the cable franchise laws, is that they are reaching Massachusetts customers through public rights of way. They're benefiting from all of the existing services that municipalities provide. And so this is a nod to, and that's where the nexus comes in, right? And that's important, right? Because you don't just want this kind of money to go into the general fund. You want it to be rationally related and targeted to uplifting the public programming, right?
Well, one of the things is that Verizon is asking, if you know about our new contract with Verizon, they're asking for a 3-year out. So
right. A lot of them are switching over.
They're beginning to think that they can go wireless into the home, bypass cable. They just want to get out of these expenses that they're doing. So this is a way of being able to say, well, hold on, you're still going through our right of ways, you're still getting into our town. We need to do this. The one thing that I wanted to mention is that, we had a discussion about this. Of course, any of these bills are only sometimes as successful as the support that they get, both from citizens, but also lobbying and organizations that have a vested interest in it. the towns are looking for more revenue, particularly with this shortfall that just came up. But you know, the towns are looking for more revenue. What about the organizations of like the town managers and I think it's the Massachusetts Municipal Association, or I forget what could you talk a little bit about what they're doing to help marshal this? Are there lobbyists involved in this? Are there you know, I reached out to the Motion Picture Coalition, which had great success with the you know, the state credits, the tax credits,
Yep.
and it kept them in place, therefore having lots of production in the state of Massachusetts. They, of course, invested quite heavily in lobbying. I don't think Mass Access is in a position to do that, considering where their money comes from, probably. So I guess maybe give us a little bit of a understanding of like, what are the forces that are marshaling something that will really have some clout, because that's kind of how it all works a little bit, right?
Well, yes and no. So Mass Access does have attorneys. I mean, that was who helped write the bill.
Okay.
They engaged with actually a top-notch legal counsel, and this is what his primary areas expertise is federal telecommunication law. And in fact, he's in litigation nationwide on this. So he really could speak to very knowledgeably both Massachusetts, but also the broader context in the US, which was very important. You do also, Mass Access does have lobbyists. And I think they use them sparingly. You know, it's this kind of with the kind of engagement that myself, Rep. Muraturi, and Senator Lewis, and actually Senator O'Connor as well, have really been doing in terms of leading. I think they've felt like they haven't needed the lobbyists to really get in there in the same way as they may choose to use them on other bills, but they do have lobbyists. And really the sort of theory of change and advocacy here has been grassroots. You know, your talent is to tell a story, and you do provide amazing services, and you have really fantastic. I mean, PAC TV did this great video that we shared at the last legislative briefing, and the testimony was off the charts, articulate, and really spoke to, especially during the pandemic, how incredibly important your services are as trusted resources of information, of local programming, of transparency and accountability in government. I mean, the little town papers are gone, for Christ's sakes. You guys are kind of like the last one standing, so that people actually can participate. So I think everyone really, all of the individual stations have, I mean, obviously I talk to you guys all the time. You'd have to lobby me. I wrote, you know, I filed the bill for you, but I tell you, your sister stations are out there and they are getting in there. They're staying in touch with their legislators. I think it's over 70 people have signed on to this bill. And, you know, at the end of the day, what it really is that you're doing is you're creating buzz and excitement and awareness, and you're educating members about not only why this bill is important to you, but what you do and why it's so important. So I'm telling you, everywhere I go in the building, everyone's like, "Oh, I just met with my Acton TV," and you know, they're telling me, you know, I signed on to your bill. So it's been a great grassroots organization. And so what we'll do is, I'm meeting with the chair this week on the House side, the House chair, right? The senator, the lead file will meet with the Senate chair. But I'm meeting with the House chair and making sure she, as the new chair, really understands all the intricacies of the bill, and really sees the legal theory of change. And then, you know, we'll do a briefing again. We'll ask for an early hearing. So there's going to be a lot of activity, even beyond this co-sponsorship period, to really pull together people and make sure that they understand what's going on and that they get in there. And, you know, people will be calling for it. So I'm actually pretty excited about it and pretty optimistic, and it's one of my top 3 priorities. So yeah, this is.
Do you anticipate legal challenges to this bill by the people at all? Is that the possibility as well?
No, we're well within our rights as the state of Massachusetts to assess a fee on these services. I know other states have tried it in different ways, and there's been a couple of states that have just, have actually sued certain corporations to get them to pay the taxes. And so I don't think so. I mean, I think that this is pretty well written. There's a Supreme Court case that really speaks to the underlying law that we're basing it on, that supports and uplifts it. We are, we're modest in the fee. We're being very consistent, right? Cable franchise laws, streaming services, right? We're being very consistent. So we're treating, in some ways, I would argue, we should treat everybody the same. And right now, it's only the cable franchises that are paying. But the change that I see it as is, we should be keeping pace with new technology and innovation in the same way we should be following where the customers are going. So that's really what this is. I look at this as an updated bill, an update. So yeah, I mean, certainly, basically what the testimony in opposition came down to is, we're not going to pay, you can't make us, and, we don't want to. I mean, it was really that basic, is they just don't want to pay more. But they benefit from the services and that Massachusetts pays. They benefit from all of the services and the fact that we have a strong economy and we have, paying clients for them, and they get to access that, and they should pay a small fee, nod towards the municipal and state services that they're availing themselves of.
How do
Is any
you
other, is any
how do
other
you define
state?
this? I'm just curious, how do you define the streaming services? Is it just television oriented programming, or in other words, a lot of bandwidth gets used on live video game stuff. That's
No. This is
any of that as well, or?
No, this is any paid service that provides audio, video, or computer generated or computer augmented entertainment and delivers such via digital infrastructure to users and delivers such services through facilities located, at least in part, in the public rights of way, without regard to delivery technology, right, the cables, including internet protocol technology and other intelligences. So it does not include any cable services as defined under the USC, or any video programming provided by commercial mobile services, also defined under the USC, or provided solely or in part a service that enables users to access content, etc. So it's really just any entity, organization that provides a streaming service, entertainment services, earns over $250,000, and goes from there. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the video game industry is probably in that realm, actually.
Twitch would be, I think.
Huh? Twitch?
Twitch.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I don't know. I don't know how broad it would be.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a streaming service per se. I mean, we can look at that and ask them if it is or not. If it is, they should pay. If it isn't, then if that's just a download, or I'm not sure that they would.
What John's talking about is there's a service called Steam, which is an online, you can play all these games online, and it's very popular. So that's a lot of megabytes flying back and forth. If you want to get a piece of Steam, I don't know,
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I guess it depends on how you're accessing it, right?
That's true. That's
true.
Right.
But
are there any states?
It is not the phone company.
It's not the phone company.
It's not the phone company.
Are there any states that actually
clarify? There are several other states. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. There are several other states that have passed similar bills, and I say similar. I think that Massachusetts has structured it differently, maybe to have more stakeholders interested, because there would be obviously percentage going directly to, or I should say, marked for community media, but also for the municipality itself and the Commonwealth. So it seems like there are maybe 9 other states that have it, but ours is structured differently.
Yeah, we have a very robust cable franchise law. And we live here, I hadn't realized that other states had not developed, had not availed themselves of that in quite the same way that we have. And so some states have gone for just straight up sales tax. Others, so they've each pursued different theories of based on their state and their laws. I will say, so we would be the first doing it this way by updating and doing it and pursuing it similarly to the cable franchise laws.
Okay.
And there is a number of states in the New England area that are actually, New York is watching to see what we do. A lot of other states are waiting for us to go first to see what the law looks like, and then to be able to point, right? That's what we always do. We're like, look, Connecticut did it. We should do it too, right? It's working there. So a lot of others are watching to see how we do it. I think what's important about the way that we've chosen to do it is that it's narrowly tailored. We've made clear what the nexus is between the fee and how that will be spent in support of local programming. So I've really kept it together, and I think that's what that's really what that Supreme Court case was about, was that nexus and how it's supporting the local church. So the money that goes to the state was because they will have obligations for assessing the fees, collecting, etc., and then distributing it down. And then part of it goes to municipality, because don't forget, they're the ones that have the infrastructure in the buildings, etc., etc. But then there's the programming piece, and that's where some of you are created a little differently, right? So there's the piece that like Hull is just one big department, and they have both the infrastructure as well as programming, whereas say you have contracted services out. So we're trying to honor all of the different arrangements that the different communities have. So it's pretty exciting. So we'll see. So, but the only way we get there is if you guys are all in and supporting it every step of the way, and helping us to do the advocacy, and really keeping it sort of in the forefront. But I will say that, as a lot of people have been, so even the legislature is doing virtual hearings, and we feel like it just had so much benefit in terms of public engagement and participation. And I think that all of the municipalities have seen the same things. And so I see everyone's really trying to continue to do this hybrid model and to have that virtual component with the in-person. And you're expanding services at an incredible rate, and the demands of the calls for services, and we need to find a sustained revenue that tracks with the value of what you're doing. So I'm very excited.
We're with you.
Yay!
Yay!
It certainly is true that the towns are making more demands on the community access folks from a technology point of view, with just the struggles I know Harbor Media is having with getting requests for more dynamic hybrid media, remote capability. They want to have in person, they want to have remote, they want to have slideshows, they want to have videos coming in. It's
right.
They want to make their school committee meetings and everything else more dynamic in the future, and it's got to come from somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
I like the statement that makes it for me is an act to modernize funding for community media programming. I mean, that's right. It. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
We're just trying to modernize it.
Yeah. And we, at the end of last session, I should say, Mass Access had sort of a listening tour, and I trooped around the state after Mass Access and presented on the bills, and it was great to meet all of the different media centers in the different areas and the regions of the state. That was really great and fun, and it's just so amazing to see some of the studios, and yours is pretty spiffy, I will say, but they're just. They all do it a little differently, and all bring their own personality and really meet the needs of their communities. And I think that's the hugely important thing. And I think that's actually going to really resonate with local state reps and local senators. I have any number of colleagues who have their own shows that do their own programming. Like, it's just amazing. It was really amazing to discover how much engagement there actually is up and down. So so it's all good, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, please invite folks to come tour. We're right off Route 3, as you know, easy to get to if anyone of your colleagues would like to come to our studio. At any time we have
Yeah.
people, volunteers working, they can also attest to why they're coming in every week to create their show or to learn how to make a show.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you guys have done pretty well. I mean, obviously Senator O'Connor's on here and Rep Kearney, Rep DeCoste, Rep Marituri. I know Rep Lenatra's on here. Like, so there's a lot. I mean, I think our area in particular has really engaged around this and really gets it. So, but yeah, we'll definitely bring people through. We'll definitely bring people through the studio. Yeah.
Joan, what is the rev share again that you guys are proposing? I said, did you say 40% of the fee would go to access, but the rest would go to, I wasn't quite sure how you figured out what the breakdown would be.
So it's 20% for the state because they do, right? So the Treasurer's Department, and DOR would collect revenues, then they'd have, assess the fine, collect the revenues, audit, all that stuff. So they'll get 20%, but then the 80% comes to the municipality, and it's 40% for the municipality itself, right? Like, so like the department or whatever they wanted to use it on, like upgrading technology, their own staff, whatever, but 40% for programming. So however, whatever, it's what we're trying to do is make sure that at a minimum, half of that money comes to you, right? But what it really will flow through whatever your contractual arrangements are. So the money will come in through the municipality. They can create it as an enterprise fund if they wanted to. It can only be used for the purposes for which it was collected and intended. We're just trying to, I mean, I think you have like 100 and like something like 150 different members, and I think maybe 25 of them are town. I'm making this up. 25 of them are towns, and I can't remember. The rest would be, would be community media centers like Harbor Media through contractual arrangements and things like that. But the idea is really to get the money to the municipality, honor the contractual arrangement, however you've organized yourselves, that at least half of that money is going to go to the programming. So,
well, if it's commensurate with the cable thing, and the cable gets 85% right now, how is this commensurate?
No, this is what's in the bill, is expressly in the bill, 20-40. Yeah. So don't forget that cable franchises are negotiated town by town. We wanted to make this much simpler. We're not trying to aggravate people. We're not trying to make it complicated. We're trying to make it simple and and straightforward. And with that, comes also reliability and consistency. So
has anyone done any idea of like how much revenue this would, just generally speaking? In other words, if a town like Hingham gets $500,000 per year from Comcast and Verizon, what kind of funds would this generate for the Access Corporation? Just generally, in other words, if we just in a ballpark,
So we figure it's 65 million statewide, and that would be distributed per person, right? So whatever it would, Cohasset would get a little bit. Hull might get a little more because they're a little bigger. Hingham's twice as big, right? They'd get more. So it'd just be per capita, per person. Yeah. Okay. Again, straightforward, simple.
Mm-hmm. So actually, that's interesting, because this revenue is not coming from subscribers per se. It's just right. So in other words, I would have. I wouldn't have internet, Hulu. I wouldn't have any of that stuff, but I would still benefit from this. Whereas, as a direct pass through, that's kind of interesting.
Right. Yeah. And again, how they pass costs off to the consumer, I'm sure would be different for each company. But that's their internal business decision. Like any other business that you frequent, right?
Yeah. So actually, it could end up, to your point, I guess, if I spin it back to you. Okay, I sign up for Hulu, and Hulu, this thing goes through. Hulu could say, okay, here's the line item for this thing I got to do for Massachusetts, right? I mean,
They're doing it for several other states already.
Right.
So
Right.
they have a mechanism in place.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, but we're not taxing the internet. We're
No,
not,
no,
we're not doing anything in violation of, FCC. This is all, like I said, this was well researched and it's well
Love the
considered.
way you put it. It's applying equality
Equality.
Right,
to businesses that are in the same business
right. Yeah.
as cable companies, which has been around for 40 to 50 years.
I mean, trust me, if they could get out from under the cable franchise fees, they'd love to do that too.
Of course.
But I'm sorry, there's a cost of doing business and they benefit a lot. And the programming that you're,
many FCC,
yeah, yeah.
administration. So
Yeah. So it's we're just keeping pace with technology. We're just following the customers and really it's meant to be modest and it's meant to really to uplift and be sustainable revenue for you. So and it's important that we do it that way because we don't want anybody else diverting it away from you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason why this is trending and it's going to be trending more is because if you have the Paramount network, for instance, which CBS owns a number of cable channels, you have NBC Universal and Comcast, which are obviously part of Comcast, so it's a little bit of a different kettle of fish because on one hand, Comcast is paying those cable services a fee. They're giving ESPN $3 a sub. That's one of the reasons why your bill is so high per month. And in this case, if all of a sudden ESPN can say, well, on one hand, we want to have our own ESPN Plus, or we want to be part of the Disney network and things like that, and it'll just be streaming income that will come in. It'll help pay for all. It's not going to pay for those rights. The cable's not going away because cable's paying for those rights.
Yeah.
Like ESPN would die on the vine. They would not have NBA. They would not have NFL if it wasn't for cable television.
Right. Yeah, and again, even that technology will continue to evolve, right? We innovate. That's what we do, right? So, yeah, and don't forget, like we bundle services all the time. So that's why it's based on their revenue in the state because, you can't, it's not just like a one-off, Joan has 3 streaming services, blah, blah, blah. It's, it's the revenues. And that's why we just try to keep it high level and straightforward. So, yeah, so it's good. Yeah, it's all good. But I have to applaud you. So I did finish up in Cohasset early and I logged in and I just, really, it was a great report, Michelle. It just sounds like you guys are rocking and rolling. It sounds like things are going well with Norwell and it just, congratulations. I mean, your growth has been off the charts and it's just really exciting to watch Harbor Media develop and blossom. So I just, congratulations.
It's what we hope for, during the pandemic and still keeping the channels on and finding new ways to work with people to contribute programming or doing safe filming outside, those kinds of things. So now our studio is super busy. The only trade-off is I like economics. The opportunity cost is that our staff is super busy working with members of the public. So, those like 18, 19 hours a week that we have people in the studio, that's what they're doing. They're working with those folks and just being in touch with other executive directors in the area. They're busy too, but they're not busy in that way.
Oh, interesting.
It's really interesting. We could have a different meeting about it, or we'll have another open house like last fall, but they have maybe 1 or 2 members producing programming. Their staff is producing a lot, which is equally well received in those communities. And speaking of PAC TV, they have a phenomenal show that talks about civic engagement, and it's a great interview show, but it's 100% staff produced because they just don't have the people coming in anymore. And Julie makes her vlog kits available for people to take and create their own content, but they're very light on that. But it's given them an opportunity to really do some other really cool productions with their staff. So everybody has something different going on. I just met with Whitman Hansen's director, former Harbor Media director, Eric Dresser. We talked about how they're working with the community So you're right, everyone's doing something differently, but everybody's pretty busy.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Serving the community. So the funds would definitely be appreciated because we have to grow the way we're working in our community.
Yeah, very exciting, very exciting. So, yeah, well, we can do this anytime you want.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, just
Thank you.
ping my staff and they'll put it in the calendar, and we should we'll know more after I meet with the chair, and then I'll have more of a feel for like when we might have a hearing, and then we'll schedule a legislative briefing, and so we'll sort of build the momentum up to that. So I'll be in touch. Thank you guys for for all of your work. This is fantastic.
And thank you for always being available. You are everywhere all the time.
Everywhere.
And you have fantastic support staff. So thank them too, because they
Thanks
just
so much, John.
quickly.
We'll definitely do a PSA when the hearing, and we'll put it on the channels. You know what I mean?
Fantastic.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
PSA chair.
Oh, I'm gonna have you guys go right into the select board and get their endorsement and everything too.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh, yeah. We've got lots of work to do. It's gonna be, we're gonna have a great time doing it. So
okay.
Very good.
sounds good. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Or not. Yes, there we go. Bye.
Okay, next meeting. Next meeting planning. I have the 13th of June at 7 o'clock. Anybody have a problem with that? Is that going to be all right?
I don't.
That works for me.
Works for me.
Okay, and what I expect by the time we do the 13th is everyone will have read through the the infamous A through O section. If you have any issues or whatever, please bring them up then, because we will vote for that. And then hopefully we'll be able to get together with Dr. Adams and John and Heather, so we can kind of get kickstart our education program, and hopefully we'll have Kristen on board by then. And we could have her be the recording secretary. What do you think, John? Huh?
I would not object. What do you think, Kristen?
Everybody, the new guy always
The
gets
newbie gets the grunt work. I get it.
and it sends you to get somebody else on board so you can dump it on now. Whatever. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All right. John Lawler,
Yes.
Dave Jones, yes. John Rice.
Me too.
Okay, thanks, guys. To contact the Hingham Cable TV Advisory Committee, you can reach us at cac@hingham-ma.gov, or you can visit our webpage at the link shown here, or just scan the QR code. Thanks for watching.